Activists are celebrating a major settlement in a federal court over the use of solitary confinement in California prisons. After years of growing attention to the brutal and torturous practice of indefinite isolation through life-risking hunger strikes, inmates won a partial victory. California prison authorities have relied on solitary to separate prisoners and as punitive measures, despite a large body of evidence against it. Thousands of prisoners are kept in tiny, sometimes windowless cell rooms for days, weeks, and even months. There have been hundreds that have spent over a decade in such unimaginable conditions. My guest is Cruz, Gallegos. She is a member of California Families to Abolish Solitary Confinement. Her brother is an inmate who's been in solitary confinement. She now joins me in studio. Welcome to Uprising.
Hi.
Hi, thanks so much for joining us. Well, first, tell us about your brother, who he is, and what conditions he has been under for years.
My brother's been incarcerated for 30 years. 26 years of those 30, he's been in a SHU cell. He's been housed in SHU for 26 years and in Pelican Bay. He was moved, he's just transported to Tehachapi prison, and he's been there since May. And
30 years in prison, and out of those, the majority held in solitary confinement. It's hard for anybody to imagine spending a week in such conditions, and your brother's been in those conditions for 26 years?
26 years.
Why? What was the reason given to hold him in such conditions?
He was told he was a threat, that somebody anonymous said that he was a threat to prisoners, and that's why he was housed in SHU, and was to remain there for 6 months, and then later 3 years, and then later he was told 5 years, and eventually they just said he has to debrief in order to get out of SHU, which...
What does that mean, to be debriefed?
To tell on others, to be a snitch.
Have you had any connection with him or able to talk to him by
Oh,
phone?
yes. Mm-hmm. No, not by phone, in person.
In person, so you can go and visit him.
It's always behind a glass.
Okay. And the rest of the time that he has spent, he cannot interact with other prisoners?
No.
What has that done to him?
Because he's had family and someone always writing, visiting him, he's got a strong relationship with us, with his family. And I think that's helped him to remain sane. And he's had a lot of love from us and constant communication, which I know a lot of inmates that don't have that, and it does affect them. I think the only way it's affected my brother is just, it's hard to see it in him if it has. I know that now that he's been transferred to this new prison, he does say that he's able to go out now to fresh air, but it's in a cage.
Still not interacting with...
He does. He talks to other prisoners now. After 26 years, he's able to talk and not get in trouble for talking to another fellow inmate. And he does his workout, his routine in a cage, along with other inmates who are like in a row. I believe there's 13 inmates working out at the same time, and he's able to talk to them. He's able to to feel the sun, the air, which he went without for 26 years.
So not only, of course, does that physically debilitate you when you don't have direct sunlight for so long, it also the psychological impacts are pretty severe. Psychologists have studied what solitary confinement does to people and found that it really is equivalent to torture, because what makes us human is not only being able to talk to one another, but even just the human touch.
Right. I know he tells us that what he notices is now, and I see it in a visit, it's still behind glass, that he's very sensitive to noise, to loud noises. If we're talking, he thinks we're talking too loud, and I don't think we're talking loud. And when he's outside, he says he has to keep turning around and see who's behind him. He hears people's voices, and he has to turn around and see where's the noise coming from. So he's constantly looking behind, and he's working on that because he notices that that's something he has to work through the, because it's not normal.
So to be kept for 26 years away from the company of other human beings, wow.
It was, it was heartbreaking the first visit we had here at his new prison when he's able to have a cell with the window. So he was very excited to have that window cell. And he says he was at night when it got dark, he was looking out the window and he was, I guess there was a tree and he was trying to see what he can see outside that window. And he says, for a while I kept staring. I didn't know that was what I was looking at. It was the moon. He hadn't seen the moon in so many years. He didn't recognize it at first. And he found that like, wow, that's the moon. And when he was telling me and my sister, because we were at a visit, he was telling us that story and we cried because it's like, it's so unfair. I'm happy that, this September 1st, the victory they had with the
settlement?
Yes, the settlement. It is he has a chance now to get out and to visit where we can hug and touch him. And I try not to get like this, but I'm happy. I'm happy it's finally here. I've waited so many years for this. 26 years for him I thought he was never going to get out of Pelican Bay. I thought if he did get out, it was going to be in a box when he's dead. And I used to think it's so unfair. Why are they going to let him go after he's gone? But I'm happy, but at the same time, when I think about, it reminds me of all the suffering, what he went through, 26 years of loneliness, not having somebody to touch or somebody to caress him or give him any kind of affection, because that's not allowed, and no phone calls, and things are. I'm glad for the change, and I'm excited. I'm happy, but like I said, it reminds me of all the pain that he's gone through, and we have gone through as his family, because we miss him, and especially on holidays, on Mother's Day, because I know he was very close to my parents, and as time throughout those 26 years, they got ill. They became ill and they passed away. And during their illness, we tried to get him transferred to a closer prison because my parents couldn't travel. They were too sick. My mother was on dialysis. My father had cancer. And we got letters from several doctors proving that my mother was ill and she couldn't travel, and can they please transfer him to a closer prison? And they wouldn't do it unless my brother would debrief. And he does have the right for a hardship transfer, but he was denied several times. And that's what's so wrong from the prison. And it happens all the time.
So your brother was held for the majority of his time at Pelican Bay State Prison. It's one of the worst offenders of the use of solitary confinement. They apparently have had 1,100 people in solitary, and at Pelican, the cells don't have windows.
Right.
But it was also at Pelican where these incredible hunger strikes took place, starting in 2011, repeatedly over several periods of time, that also catapulted the issue of this terrible practice of solitary into the national consciousness, and even got a lot of international coverage. Did your brother participate, as far as you know?
There was 3 strikes that he participated in. I know the first strike he did was he didn't eat for 26 days.
Wow.
And the second strike, he didn't eat for 20-something days. And the third one, it was less days that he didn't eat, but that's because he has a blood disease called hemochromatosis, where he has to get his a phlebotomy. They have to wash, I don't know how to explain it, but they clean his blood out, and they denied him that treatment because he was participating in the hunger strike. If he doesn't have that treatment, it would affect his heart and his liver. So it's very important that he would have that treatment. So they gave him a choice: either you continue on this hunger strike, or you don't get the treatment. And that's why he ended after the 26 days, I believe, the first time.
So this particular decision, it's a legal decision. And so obviously there were a lot of lawyers involved that have donated their time and worked really hard to make this happen.
Yes.
But how much impact do you think those hunger strikes had on pushing this and sort of shaming California for what it's doing?
The hunger strikes worked in some way, but I think the way it really made an impact was families, people
On the outside.
We are their voices. It's very important for us to let the world know, the public know, what California prison is doing, how they treat their prisoners, how they're torturing them. And it's through people like this organization that I belong to, California Families Against Solitary Confinement. We're out there voicing for them. We're telling people what is going on. And yes, the hunger strikes, of course, did, because that was horrible for them to go through, but we still need a lot of work. We've come a long way, but we need more people involved, more family members. There's a lot of prisoners with family, and these prisoners in SHU, the family members should participate and make more. We need more people.
So the settlement, as far as I understand, would essentially now not allow for solitary confinement to be used as a tool to get people to snitch on one another. These sort of, if someone is just randomly identified as being in a prison gang, that used to be that solitary was a punishment, so they can't use that anymore. Is that as far as you know? And so they can also not allow the use of indefinite solitary confinement.
Correct. That's the victory.
The main victory that prisoners would be put into these cells, completely isolated, and not know when it was going to end.
Right.
So which was what happened to your brother.
That's what the victory was, is they can no longer use other type of information like drawings or letters or their names or go by snitches or any other. They need hard evidence to put somebody in SHU.
Do you consider this a huge victory or just the start?
It's a huge victory. I think the start was when he got out of Pelican Bay. That was the start.
For you personally?
For me personally, is to see him leave that place.
Yeah.
And to see him now. Now he's different. He's not, he's changed. He doesn't have that look, that serious look. Now he's vibrant. He's got a smile on his face, and he's excited, and he's so happy to know that he's going to be out there, that he wants to be out with treated like a regular prisoner.
Yeah, we're not even talking about freedom, real freedom.
No.
Just being able to interact with other prisoners.
Yes. It feels like it's real freedom because it's like he's been alive but dead at the same time.
How much longer does he have to serve?
He's alive.
He's a lifer.
Mm-hmm.
So if all he can hope for and your family can hope for is for him to live out the rest of his days in as comfortable an environment as possible.
Yes.
And for you to be able to hold him and touch him when you go to visit him.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's rehabilitation to be able to touch families. I know California CDC says that the prisoners have rehabilitation, but I didn't see any rehabilitation these 26 years. There hasn't been. Because if he hasn't had a touch from another human being or to spend time with family, there's no rehabilitation. And now I see the little that he's had with us, because it's different from the previous visits in Pelican Bay. Where he's at today, there's no phone. We don't have to talk it's glass and behind a phone at Pelican Bay. Here, it's open, so everybody speaks at the same time. So it's like a group visit.
It's human.
Yes, so that's closer to being in a circle with family. And I can see it in his eyes. I can see it every time I go see him. He's different. He looks happier. There's another look in his eyes. He's got color in his skin. Because he was pale. He was like transparent.
Because of no
sun.
exposure to the sun.
And now he'll come to the visit and say, do I look like I have a tan? Because he's so proud of a tan. I'm like, I stay away from the sun, and you want to be in the sun. But he's missed the sun for so many years, and now to him, he doesn't care. He just wants to feel the sun.
So this decision is impacting thousands of prisoners across the state of California. I understand that there's a hearing period, but it's likely comment period with hearings, but it's going to likely be accepted by the U.S. federal judge. So it's when it's a formal done deal, thousands of prisoners across California will see a real change.
Yes, we're hoping for that.
Well, Cruz, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you for having me and be able to continue being their voice.
Is there a website you'd like to give out for the organization?
The California Families Against Solitary Confinement.
And people can just Google that. And
Yes.
We'll post a link to
And
our
they can,
website.
they'll be updated on everything that's going on.
Good luck to you and your family.
Thank you.
My guest is Cruz Gallegos. She's a member of the group California Families to Abolish Solitary Confinement. Her brother has been an inmate in California prisons for years, was at Pelican Bay State Prison for 26 years in solitary confinement.